So I think I want to get us started so that we can have the most time as possible to hear from our speakers and understand this exciting change with Children's Hope Alliance. Joining us this evening is Lori Feast. She is the Director of Donations for Children's Hope Alliance. And Lori, I will let you begin with just sharing, why just opening the introduction as to why we felt like it would be good to meet and share with both the Presbyterian women and the presbytery, all the exciting changes and how this benefits your children. So that's really why we're here tonight, is to understand these new direction that Children's Hope Alliance is going. And I think Lori can help us with that. So Lori, let me let you join to start.
Thanks, Terry. Well, the real star of tonight is my boss's boss, Celeste Dominguez. She is our CEO and the president. And a lot of you guys know how much I love the agency and how I'm going on 14 years, April 14th of this year. And everything that we've been doing the entire time I've been here has been to move us closer to really tackling the trauma that a child experiences when they're in our care or when they're going through the system. And a lot of you guys know that the system is radically broken. I was listening to a program where I understood that we were lowering the suicide rate because we've got a program called School-Based, where we've got counselors in schools helping teachers and parents and kids and just really talking about suicide. And so I didn't think I could get even more excited about how the agency is progressing. And then Celeste told us that we were going to go into the mess, that we were ready. We had tested it. And instead of just yanking a child out of a home and placing them in a foster, placement, and then having that foster placement not be right, and then the child go through 4, 5, 7 different placements, I seriously was running around the house here screaming. There was nobody home, but I was so flipped out excited because a lot of you guys know my story, and I didn't grow up in the greatest house. And I think as a kid, and the kids that I've interviewed, they've all said, every one of them, that if they would have had, and I know if we would have had this sort of service when things were going horrible, that things would have been much different all the way around for the kids that I spoke to, that we had in a residential program or in our independent living, transitional living program. So I was super excited about it and was telling everybody how incredible this is going to be. And then Terry is really the one that said, oh my gosh, we need to go ahead and share this with the presbytery. So let me introduce Celeste. She grew up in Chula Vista, California, and she earned her BA in psychology at the University of San Diego. And then she later earned her master's in counseling in psychology at the graduate program at Montclair State University. She has 28 years of experience as an administrator in private and nonprofit agencies providing care for children, adolescents, adults, and families. Additionally, Celeste has 20 years of clinical and supervisory experience with mental health populations, including emotional disturbance, substance abuse, severe and persistent mental illness, and dual diagnosis. Celeste was recruited in 2001 to Barium Springs Home for Children, where she held the position of Chief Business Officer until she accepted the position of President and CEO in October of 2018. She holds great admiration for her mother because she raised a family and they had 8 children, and she did it all with minimal resources. So she really was a woman who made the world a better place. I love Celeste's personal motto. If you ever want have your boss ever be mad at you, want it to be Celeste, because her motto is be kind, loving, happy, and fearless. So she's everybody's biggest cheerleader. So I love her. The best piece of advice that she has ever been given, her answer was never quit, as there are opportunities in every day to make a difference. So don't miss out on your opportunities. And Celeste, outside of work, she has 2 fabulous adult children. One will be a psychologist, and one plans to be a doctor. So they're going into service careers like she did. She loves traveling. She loves the beach. And she really is a rock star because she's always making sure that we do what's right for the children and families that are in our care. Celeste, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you all for letting me, and thank you for Gina, that was very sweet. Thank you for letting me be here tonight. The 20 years that I have spent at this agency are absolutely full of passion and full of my desire to help the agency serve the children before us, at this point in time. The agency's been through a lot in 130 years. Transforming from the orphanage days to the child welfare days to the juvenile justice days, really to the day that we are now. And our system is different. The system of care is different. The priorities are different. And the needs of the children are different. What I have learned in that 20 years, and you're going to see that on this first slide here, is that kids do best in families. In all of my years' experience, especially these last 20 years, I hear over and over and over again from the children we serve, I just want to be with my family. I just want to see my family. I just want to be connected to my family. Those roots are long lasting, and it does not matter what those life experiences are. There is this innate desire to be connected to your family of origin in some way. For many kids, it's okay if it's a brother, a sister, a grandma, an uncle, a mom, a dad, but it matters. Family matters. My own personal experience would attest to that. Lori shared with you, I came from a family that lived in poverty, a father that struggled with addiction. I have siblings that are developmentally disabled, substance use issues in treatment, broken families, divorce. All of those things are a part of my life every single day. And I can tell you that there is never a moment with us 8 kids, with most of my parents have passed, all of my grandparents have passed, just about many of my aunts and uncles have passed. I have 1 aunt left in all of my chain. We have a desire every day to be connected to those roots and to not lose sight of each other, no matter what life holds for us in our individual experiences. I want that same family connection for our children at Children's Hope Alliance. And these children come from situations much more complex than the one that I personally experienced. And so I want to listen to them. I want to hear what they're saying. And what I thought was, we need to figure out how to embrace this challenge, right? We don't always know best. Sometimes the children know best. Sometimes their families have words of wisdom that we cannot put behind our own thoughts of what's best as professionals. So kids do best in families. We want to do what's best for kids. Andy, if you'll flip to the next slide, I'm going to jump right in here, y'all, on what's happening and share with our new vision. In 2020, we embarked on a new vision that by 2030, that's 10 years, right? We wanted to build a big, hairy vision and push ourselves to do the best that we can do. By 2030, we would move to be a multi-state agency using whole person integrated care approaches, which means we don't just serve the child and the immediate problem. We address every life domain. We address their family's life domains, and we make a difference in that community and that child's network. So whole person integrated care, whole family care literally means that we are not just serving the child anymore. We are serving that child and their support system. To move from 2,000 lives served where we are now to 20,000 impacted lives annually. That is a massive growth. And to do so in a way that generates an agency revenue of $100 million a year, which is what we estimate it will take for us to support the operations to serve 20,000 lives in multiple states. And beyond that, to make an impact on the systems that govern what happens to these children, the systems that remove children from their homes, that incarcerate children at a young age, that don't give children an opportunity to stay with their family and have the family heal. We also want to make an impact on those systems. We are asking for you to hear this presentation and hear our heart and our vision. This is a change for us, similar to the change when we moved from an orphanage to child welfare, when we moved from child welfare to mental health. We now need to move our system in this new direction, away from residential group care, where in our own experience and based on research that we've collected from the Duke Endowment, from the Annie Casey Foundation, from lots of other sources in North Carolina, we know that children in group homes are hurting, sometimes worse than when they entered. To have a child leave their home and experience 6, 10, 15 residential group home placements means that a large portion of their life has been spent separated from their family. Research tells us, our own research confirmed this, that when a child is separated more than 90 days, that family bond starts to disintegrate. And the family closes that space where the child was, and they begin to fill that space in a different way. The child now becomes outside the family system instead of an integral part of the family system. So in addition to the experience of being away and not having someone to hug you at night, and, you know, hold your hand and tell you that things are going to be okay and that they love you and to stay connected, you're all immersed in this treatment process, which in many ways is very good, but in other ways builds other negative repercussions for each of those children's lives. So we wanted to look at that. We wanted to look at that and be honest about what group care did to children in the total picture. And we challenged ourselves to say, can we do better? Can we do better with less trauma in these children's lives? And can we create a new solution that would attend to the child's needs, the family needs, and the community needs, and really just do better by every one of these children? Our response to that was yes. So Andy, if you'll move to the next slide. A little more backdrop for you, right? There is this tension right now in our state, in North Carolina, where folks are saying, we need more group homes, we need more group homes, we need more group homes. And we're saying, why? Why do you need more group homes? There is no magic in 4 walls and a door. And there is certainly no magic in 4 walls and locked doors, where children are confined inside for long periods of time. During COVID, I can share this with you. We had a psychiatric, acute psychiatric unit, and that unit had 8 children, and most of those children were under the age of 11. One of them as young as 7. And then COVID happened. They couldn't go home. Their family couldn't come to us. They couldn't go to another placement. They couldn't go outside. They couldn't see friends. They had to wear masks. We were testing all of the time. We had quarantines. We had outbreaks. We had staff sick. It was a very scary time. And if you guys will just take a minute to think back to when you were 7 or 8, or your children or your grandchildren in that age range, how hard that would be to be away from your family. We had 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 11-year-olds away from their families for over 18 months. In my estimation, that's a tragedy. Even though every day we were providing care, every day we were making sure that they were fed well and they were entertained and they had activities and they were getting therapy and they were getting treatment, 18 months in isolation was a tragedy. And so it was a bigger impetus to us to say, how can we rapidly change this cycle and move to a different place? So when folks say we need more group homes, I say, let me tell you about our story. Let me tell you about our data. Let me tell you what we created, because we actually don't need more group homes and we don't need to cause that trauma. Our data comes from our initiation of a brand new service. And you're going to see in our video in a little bit a family expressing the impact of that service. But essentially, we built a service and we said, what are the problems in the group home model? The first problem was disconnect from the family. How do we keep children in their families and treat them there? The second problem was the system. And honestly, lots of people evaluate families because of that dysfunction or because of the trouble. What we know is that families have generational cycles of abuse, of trauma, of poverty, of addiction, of developmental disabilities, of mental illness. We know that those things are cyclical and they come in family generational experiences. So what we thought is, why just serve the child? Why don't we help this family too? If we're going to help this child build skills, let's help mom build skills and learn how to function how she wants as a mom. Let's learn, work with dad. If both of them want a job or they need to come up with a different plan for income, let's help them get those resources. If they can't put food on the table, let's help them put food on the table. Let's not just hand them all of those resources. Let's teach them those skills so that they don't just learn to eat, right? They learn to fish. We want to help build a sustainable skill set in these families. We built this service called the Child Focused ACT program, and we did it to meet those first two needs, keeping children at home and treating the child and the family. We looked at all of the things. We looked at safety, because many of the children that were in group home care were children that ran away. They were children that were sex trafficked. They were children that had very aggressive and violent behaviors. So we said, how do we help those children safely be in the community? How do we safety plan? How do we get law enforcement involved? How do we be involved in their school? How do we make sure they have mentors? How do we make sure they have activities? How do we make sure we have the staff to teach them those self-regulation skills? So we built a team that has a psychiatric practitioner, a nurse, multiple nurses actually, multiple therapists with different specialties, qualified professionals that are our skill-based people. We have a intake coordinator who's looking for the whole picture. When a child comes in, we don't just say, what's the problem for today? What's causing the problem? We say, describe this child's life to us. Describe the family's life to us. That intake person gets that first whole picture, and then we can work on the whole picture with a whole plan, right? So after doing this for a year and a half, the part that Lori's so excited about, right, is we have learned that we, serving about 85 clients in 1 year, and just for perspective, y'all, we can serve about 8 children in a group home. We can serve 45 people on a team. So at the same time frame, 6 months of treatment, 8 children get served in a group home, 45 get served on this team. That's the difference in the exponential impact that we're having on children, families, and communities. We are serving way more children in a much more effective way, and we're not disintegrating families. Our data tells us that over 87% of those children in our very first cycle never had to step foot in a group home. Not one day away from their family, even with runaway behaviors, even with sexualized behavior, even with risks of sex trafficking, even with poverty and homelessness and hunger and employment issues in that family system, at home, successfully making progress and having hope for a different life. The real transformation here is the transformation in bringing hope to those families and those children who never thought that their life would be any different than their aunts, their uncles, their grandmas, their great grandmas, and all of the generations that lived this life before them. This is what they know. This is what they believe is what's possible and what they're entitled to. We're giving them a whole different set of possibilities for a different kind of life, and then helping resource that. So the real transformation is that children and families are healing together with better outcomes, with better integration, and never having to go into the group home experience where they've had these other experiences. Andy, if you'll switch the slide for me. So the alternatives to residential for us, the Child Focused Act was the very first foray. And I am proud to say to you, we literally had our clinical officer and myself and a business person, and we sat down and said, here's the problem. Let's put this on paper. Let's do some research. We went to 7 other states. We evaluated what was happening there. We asked them what they were doing. How did they move from residential to other kinds of services? What did they learn? We didn't want to create any of their same mistakes, right? To that degree, we were like, let's take all the smart people and all the smart information out there and let's fill our brains with it. And let's build something that's awesome, right? Let's not trip all over ourselves. So we did that. We got all of that information. We created a definition. We presented it to the state of North Carolina and said, we want to do this. And they said, we want you to do that. We don't know where that came from, but what's it going to cost? So they let us build a cost model. They let us present it statewide. And we had one of our managed care organizations say, we want to kick that off for you. We want to do that right now. We'll pay you exactly what you're asking. We'll give you startup funds and we'll get you off the ground. That managed care organization is now out of business, but it got transitioned to another managed care organization who has grown it even further. They've now given us authorization for additional teams, and we have every managed care now in North Carolina, which is 7, and 5 prepaid health plans, which now want us to do presentations to grow this service to help more children and families in this way. It is a phenomenal alternative to the residential model. The Duke Endowment has been a huge funding source for us. We went to them in the beginning and we said, we want to put some science behind this. We want to do it and we believe that it's the right thing to do, but we need some funds to get a science partner at the table so that we can measure our outcomes. We can do some research papers. We can do a study. We can get other people to participate. And we have all of that science to back up what we know experientially in our own data is happening to validate what we're doing. I'm going to be totally honest with you. That's because we want to do more. We want to teach people how to do this. We want to take it to other states. We want people to not use group homes and use this alternative system. This is the first service of its kind in the United States. What we're doing is really cutting edge, front of the pack, trying to make a difference. And we want to take it elsewhere. I actually already have 2 international partners that have asked us from our Teaching Family Association, which is where our model of care comes from, to come present to them in other countries because they now want to do this. So it's a really exciting transformation. And there is no question that the data demonstrates that this is a much better way to go. There is no group home in North Carolina that is getting the outcomes in their services, even though they are doing good things and they are making an impact in that child's life in some positive ways. They are not getting the lasting outcomes that we're getting, and they're not getting family outcomes. So that is why this is unique. Andy, if you'll flip the slide for me. So a little bit of a backdrop, because I don't want you to think this just like cropped up out of nowhere. We just, said one day, hey, let's just turn our lives upside down and do something really cool and different. There were things that went into this. We had years of challenges in residential, keeping high qualified staff. Residential is the most complex service for children, and yet it is the entryway. Our system in North Carolina has built this as the entryway for people into the mental health field. So you have the most complex kids with the least sophisticated staff, and you put it together and things fall at the bottom. So that's the reality of this model. Staff are exhausted, the children are complicated, the 24 hours in the same small environment with a child, it's exhausting to the child, it's exhausting to the staff. We also had COVID-19, just brick to the forehead, right? The quarantines, the outbreaks, the sick staff. I literally in one program alone, out of 23 staff, in a matter of a day and a half, lost half of them to COVID. And we are scrambling around trying to figure out how do we safely keep these children in this setting. We tried a quarantine unit. We tried to bring children into a quarantine unit. Everybody there got sick. The staff got sick. It was a disaster. Great idea, terrible execution, just could not pull it off in COVID. The system shut down too. We couldn't get children in and we couldn't get children out. And y'all will remember in the beginning of COVID, there weren't tests available. There was no vaccine available. There was only freak out and panic and worry and people going, just everybody stay home, right? Well, when you're talking about group homes, everybody stay home is that tragedy that I was telling you about. So COVID-19 put some pressures on us and we had to think through that. And it did put us in a place where we immediately needed to reduce census for safety and for staffing. And then we started to develop this service and said, we need to go ahead and reduce the census because all of these children can be safely served in a different way. And we can use telehealth and we can use other things. We can meet with families outside. We can do lots of things differently. So it really just was a huge impetus to us. And then at the same time, we had this vision that we set in 2020 with this huge expansion. And we said, if we're going to grow, let's not grow more of what doesn't work. Let's go ahead and shift gears and grow what we now have some preliminary data that says, do more of this. And the receptivity in the community was, please do more of this. How fast can you do more of this? We're desperately in need of more of this. And so it validated where we wanted to go in our expansion plans. And all of that ties together to be the catalyst for us wanting to do something very bold. I didn't want to start with that though, because that's not the fun part. The fun part is what we're doing, how effective it is, and where things are headed. So Andy, if you'll slip to the next slide. So in terms of doing better, I'm going to share this with you, right? In healing the family, there is no question that there are some families that are not quite ready, right? It is a reality. Because there are families that are not quite ready, another part of this service that we build, we call professional parenting. So this is not traditional foster care. It's not even therapeutic foster care or intensive foster care, all of which are built in North Carolina. This is yet another service that we built and created and funded. These foster parents, they're trained differently. They make a living wage. We pay them that living wage. And they get the board rate from the entity that refers them. So they not only get what they normally would get as a foster parent, but we are paying them a living wage on top of that. That is because we expect that professional parent or professional parents, because many times they're couples, to work with that biofamily to help get them ready. Part of their job is partnering with the biofamily and the Child Focus Act team to get them ready to heal together. And that's a reality. We have some families that will say things, and this is a real story, right? I don't want to use substances anymore. And I know it's the use of substances that's keeping my child from being in my home. So I need to go to treatment. We help them get to treatment. We help them get through treatment. We even sustain that treatment. We have clinicians that do substance use outpatient. So when they come out of treatment, they can be there. But if they relapse, if they leave the program, if they do it, we have professional parenting as a backup so that the child is always in a safe space and a safe place. That child safety is a paramount important to us. We don't compromise that. We do make sure that's possible. And we built that so that the families that desire to heal have the opportunity to get ready to heal. And those that are ready to heal, we're jumping right in with both feet. Institutionalized care, I am not in any way saying that institutionalized care is bad. There are some children, especially in the system that North Carolina has created, that have been in this system since they were 5, right? You can enter our system at the age of 5 and you don't exit until you're 21. So there are some children that are in our system from the age of 5 and never have been home except for a short home visit. And now they're aging out of the system, right? To me, there cannot be a worse tragedy than that. We have not done a good job raising those children. And that's not we as in Children's Hope Alliance, that's we as a system. If you look at the data of children that have been raised in the system, more often than not, they are homeless. They are without employment. They're having unwed pregnancies, they're in the criminal justice system, they're addicted to substances. The outcomes for young people raised in the institutionalized system are terrible, terrible. It's not good. But those children are in our system today, and many of them are what I call institutionalized. They've grown up here, getting them to understand that something can be different, their life can be different, their family can be healthy. It's an uphill battle for some of them. And some of them are just like, nope, not doing it. Too much work, too late. This boat is sailed. I'm just going to ride this out. And then I'm going to say goodbye to the system and I'm going to live my own life and do my best, right? Most times that doesn't come out. So I am not criticizing any entity that does group care. The time that they're with children, I know many of those CEOs are my friends. In the moment that they have with that child, they're doing their best. We simply believe that we can do better and we can do different and we can have better results. So again, not criticizing any of them, but for us, institutionalized care was not the most optimum outcome that we could have. We are looking to break those cycles of abuse, trauma, neglect, poverty, homelessness, addiction, substance use. And the only way to break that cycle is to hit these little people where their big people live, right, at home. And so breaking that cycle for little people and big people in conjunction is where our heart sits. And if you will do the next slide. Lori, I think we're at the video, right? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Andy, yeah, I think it's slide 7. So you'll see 2 families that we've helped. And since we're not taking questions, if you have questions that you want to put into the chat, we definitely will get back to you and answer your questions. But you'll watch this video.
Christina has a huge personality. It's so big, and you can't help but fall in love with her. I mean, she's just, if you could take the trauma away, she is absolutely precious.
I started noticing something going on with Jonathan in kindergarten. Then the school started noticing it. We were having meetings back to back about his behaviors, his outbursts. He is the kind of kid that finds the loophole if there's a loophole to be found.
We found out that from Christina's social worker and the pictures and things that were taken into court, that Christina had been kept in a playpen with baby gates bungee cord over the top of it to create a cage. That's her sister Emily was in there most of the time with her too, for hours and hours. I mean, it would be all day because the parents would get high at night and fight, call the police and things like that, and the kids were just so high-strung at night. So they would put them in the crate during the day so they could sleep. The first day she was here, it was a real challenge because when it became time for her to go to bed that night, she became really upset, you know, and crying and kicking and screaming.
I would sit on the couch with her. You know, we watch TV. When she started getting a little bit sleepy, I would go up to the room and sit with her, you know, because she wouldn't stay up there by herself, you know.
He slept in his office chair, I can't tell you how many nights, or either on the floor beside her bed.
Yeah, just to be up there, because when she got up, she was going to come downstairs, you know. So when I did that, oh my God, at least 3 months.
She had seen something unreal to the point, and she looked at me one time when she was talking pretty clear, and she was like, "Mommy, I'm scared." And she just wet herself. From what I understood from DSS, Christina was placed in 5 different homes. We were number 6. And I don't think she really believed that she was going to be here long, because she had little backpacks, these little mini backpacks, and she would pack them with all her little lip glosses and things that she really loved, and keep them packed all the time. And at first I would be like, "Christina, we can't do that. We have to put our toys away." Every night that we didn't sleep a wink, all of that was Christina, you know, trying to deal with what all had happened in her little life in the very beginning. And that's where I think that Children's Hope Alliance comes in so important, that they provide training and classes so that you can become therapeutic and you understand how to approach the child when you need to back off and just give them a minute, because they're feeling all this anger and all this pulling inside. And so she's learned to express herself without as much of the violent tantrums that she had before. I'm going to help this kid no matter what. And when we get that support that we need, it refuels us to help us keep raising this little girl and helping her to have a normal life with, she's going to have a good life and she's going to have a good future. I believe that she's going to be a strong person, and I think she's going to be a hard worker. I think all those things, I see big things for Christina.
His dad got killed. That's when my nightmare with him began. He used to stand up and tell me he wished I'd have died instead of his daddy. Refusing to go to school, refusing to let me out of his sight. Destroying anything and everything that he could get his hands on, busting TVs, tearing up clothes, tearing up game systems. Getting up, going to school that morning, his daddy was here. He gets out of school a few hours early, daddy's gone. She said, "Do you remember back in March when we visited the Child Act option?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "And your dad said against it, right?" I said, "Well, if it's my only option, I'll give them a try." She said, "This is only temporary. If the child is tearing up stuff, cussing you, getting suspended from school, you've been to doctors and you've tried thousands of medications and nothing works, and the therapist says, try Child Act, try PRTF. You don't know until you try if it's going to work or not." Miss J was like Jonathan's new best friend. I mean, he talked to her, he would interact with her, they would do games, they would play Phase 10. She really helped. Child Act really helped us.
And say, "I love you, house. I love you, car. I love you, puppy. I love you. Mommy, can I call Daddy? I want to tell him I love him." It's just so full of love. It was, "I love you. You're in the store. You know, I love you." And we had to have therapy about that too, boundaries and when to stop, you know, and things like that, because she was so euphoric. You know, it was just like, "I'm finally in love." That's what we figured out. She had finally figured out what love is. And it was here with us.
But at this point, we wouldn't be where we're at if things would have been different. And instead of sitting here talking to you about Child Act, I could be sitting in a courtroom defending him on some serious charge that I know is not going to get him out of the trouble. So I'd rather sit on a couch and talk about how good people are to you and bring you out of dark spots than to sit in a courtroom and listen to them sentence my son to a life in jail or prison or whatever else. Because it felt good to have somebody in my corner that was in the corner with Jonathan.
Beautiful, right? Y'all, these are real families, real stories. The one thing that I want to share with you is just a little bit of a picture. In North Carolina, there are various levels of group homes, right? The lowest level being what we call level 1. Those are children with safety issues. They get taken from homes for neglect, dirty clothes, parents not there supervising, things like that. And then the very highest level is called psychiatric residential treatment facility. These are locked. Picture a locked psychiatric hospital, right? That's what it is, only they're in small units. So this is a locked psychiatric unit, no exit, nobody enters without permission. The children are in there and they are in this very confined unit. When we started Child Focus Act, we said, let's not go to the lower end of the spectrum and take the easy cases. Let's go to the PRTF and take those children. We started our very first ACT team with psychiatric residential treatment youth that were going to be admitted to a locked psychiatric unit. And in fact, we made the deal with the managed care company and said, they have to meet the same criteria. We don't want them in ACT unless they meet that criteria to be in that locked unit based on North Carolina's system. We started with the most difficult kids and had success. We know now that we are going to be able to take this service and serve an entire array of children that would otherwise be served in residential group care. We don't have to do it with the same intensity. They may need less service or a shorter period of time, but we know that if we can serve the most complex children successfully and keep them out of group care, we can serve all children in this continuum successfully. We are in a growth phase. We have spent the first third of our fiscal year this year building the infrastructure to add more teams. We are now getting ready to embark on a massive hiring campaign. We know all of North Carolina needs these teams. We can serve 45 to 55 children on a team. And we add therapists and nurses as the team grows. So they have a core staff. Everyone has a psychiatrist, everyone has a nurse, everyone has a therapist, everyone has skills staff. And then we add other staff as that team grows. So if we're in a geography, like let's say we're in the Iredell County, the Piedmont area, and 10 more kids need this service in that area, we can add additional staff to that team and absorb those 10 kids very quickly. As we go out and build services in new areas, we've just built a new team in the Alamance County area, right in Burlington. We will be expanding that team. That team it's at about 3 or 4 kids now. It's starting to grow. And as the surrounding counties, and it expands to the surrounding counties there, start to understand and be confident in the service, and we have a chance to share this data, and we have folks like you spreading the word. I've heard about that service. That's a great service. You need to call Children's Hope Alliance, do this differently, like let them come talk to you. We then will build those teams, and we will be spreading out across North Carolina and then looking for our border states as our next priority after that. So hopefully that gives you a picture of what we're doing. Before I pass it to Lori, I want to say to you, there's nothing more valuable to me than the prayers from all of the Presbyterian members and all of your church members. This is hard work. The secondary trauma that our staff experience is a very real experience. You can't hear those stories and see those videos like you just did every day, day in and day out, without it grabbing your heart and squeezing it a little bit. So we need to be lifted in prayers. Our leadership needs to be lifted in prayers. We want to take care of the people that are taking care of these very important children and families that need so much help. So I just would leave my session with you with that specific appeal to you to help us in that regard. Lori, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thanks, Celeste. You truly are the inspiration, and we've never ever had a leader as dynamic as you, and it's just so incredible. You guys, we love you. We couldn't do what we do without all of the church, our church family. A lot of you have asked, how can you help? And you are helping with prayer. That's a given. I don't know how many times you guys tell me, yes, you've got us in your nightly prayers. Thank you. One of the other ways, of course, is to get us in front of your mission teams. We have 2 churches that are flipped out excited about this new ACT program, Assertive Community Treatment Team, and they're actually going to dip into their endowments. I didn't know church had endowments, but I guess that makes sense. And they're going to fund us in small 10, 20, $30,000 ways because they believe that we're really going to break the cycle and we're really going to make a big difference. The other thing that we've had happen since Celeste has been talking about how we are radically going to break the cycle, and maybe in 20 years or 30 years, we won't have the children being treated the way that they've been treated for the last 40 years, is that we have a Children's Trust Society. That's a society that we've had for a while now, and people leave as little as 10% of their estate plans to us, and it furthers the work that we do. So if anybody has any interest in that, just give me a call. We really appreciate all you've done for us so far. We really could not have done and stayed in the child advocacy business without you guys. Many of you know that Berrien Springs has been living on a shoestring for a very, very long time because we don't spend any money that we don't have. And when we do have to borrow it out of our endowment, we pay it back. So we want to be around for the next 150 years. We're so thrilled that the Presbyterian Church helped us get started back in 1891 and 1914 for Grandfather Home. So thank you for everything that you do, and we'll answer your questions. Thanks, Terry.
Right. So what we're going to do, everyone, as opposed to taking questions now, is to hopefully organize another meeting with Lori, either virtually or in person, and take the questions that you have and please send them to me, send them to Lori. I'll be putting this out in the prompter. I'll be putting the recording and their Celeste and Lori's emails out in the prompter, but also taking questions personally that we can have her address at another time. We wanted to just get this information out so that folks are aware of these changes, know how impactful they are, know about the new transitions, and then start to build a plan as to how we can help them move forward, not only with our donations, but perhaps other ways that we can support. There's lots of needs for foster care and for these families, both the original families, the bio families, or families that assist with these children. So lots of ways in the future. So stay tuned, I think, is the message. Put any more questions that you have in the chat. And we thank Andy James for his support this evening. And we thank Children's Hope Alliance for all the good work that they do.
Terry, if
yes,
I could jump in really quickly, Regina always has a comment to be made. One, I want to acknowledge you for your work in getting this going and coordinated and working with Celeste and Lori and Andy to make this evening possible. I know Roxanne was on that committee too. We thank you for your heavy lifting as always. Couldn't imagine it happening without you. As this recording is made available, I urge that, you know, folks on this call will make their churches aware, but beyond your churches, talk to your neighbors and your friends. You know, we as the Presbyterian women and Presbyterian Church USA certainly are foundational in supporting this worthy organization, but there are other folks who know the Bible too, and who would want to do Matthew 25 activity, even if they don't know that's what it is. So we want to make sure that this is shared far and wide, and that folks understand that as we partner with Berrien, that there are others who can do the same. So we want to make sure, we ask the folks who are the audience tonight to take Terry's Herculean efforts here, along with the folks who have presented this, and carry this farther, so that if there are other audiences, if there are other folks of interest, we can also pull them along with us, because it does take more than just a village to do this worthy work. So let's make sure we do that where we can.
Appreciate that. And so just in thinking about that, so again, your prayers to Lori and them. We just want to say thank you for joining us this evening. Please spread the word and keep all of these individuals that are doing this work in your prayers. And we will, Lori, spread the word. And again, thank you for all of this information, and Celeste for sharing such an impactful presentation. So thank you all, and
Thank you all
and
for
have a
having
good
us.
evening.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Bye now.